Yeah.
Tax day.
All right, we're going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. This is our April 16th special meeting regarding blight. So have a roll call, please.
Morris. Cole.
Here.
Edward. Here. Leak.
Here.
Leak.
Here.
Passanella. Shannon.
Here.
All right. We have one thing on our agenda tonight. I don't think there's anything to add to it, so.
Yes, there is.
Oh, apologies.
Set a public hearing
Oh, that's right.
for the property tax.
Right, okay. Why don't we go ahead and put that
The
as a
real
first.
estate tax.
Yeah, real estate.
Okay.
Why don't we go ahead and put that as first item?
With no objection.
With no objection.
Does anyone object? I don't object.
I don't object.
There's no objection then.
Okay.
Our next item is our blight. So at our last work session, one of the proposals was to add a line item for blight that we could be able to use to, if needed, for payments to come out for actions that the town might take against a property owner to get the situation resolved. It was thought that this might take more than just,
Set a date.
oh,
You said we were going to do it first, and then you moved on to the blight.
apologies. I thought it was
I know.
just setting a date.
Do we have
Okay.
to vote on the date? Yeah,
We have to pick a date.
you have to pick a date.
Okay.
It's, what's the date?
But-
When you
What is,
got-
I mean,
Yeah,
I have to advertise it Monday. It will be published on April 25th. It has to
Okay.
be 30 days prior to the public hearing. So at a minimum, it would be May 25th, which leaves
it's a
Which is
Friday.
Memorial Day weekend.
Memorial Day weekend.
Not a good
So
time.
I guess it would go into first week in June.
Well, there's still some days in May, the 29th, the 30th, and the 31st.
And we can't adopt a budget until that's done, right?
No, you can adopt the budget. You can't, you can hold the public hearing on the budget
Right.
prior to this. I don't think they can adopt the budget until this is done, right, Mark?
So we're pushing adoption of the budget into June
I'm good the 29th.
I'm good the 29th,
of May.
yes. It's a Tuesday. Anybody else?
Tuesday, over on this side?
Yes, sir.
Time, 7?
Whatever's good for anybody else, I don't care.
Whatever works for you.
All right.
And if nothing changes, we could adopt the budget that night.
We should be able to adopt the budget that night, yeah.
Or we
Okay.
can just wait till the next,
Or till the
Monday.
June, the June meeting.
it's
yeah.
5 days.
4th.
Okay. Okay, we all in agreement with that? All
June
right.
29th.
May.
I mean,
May.
May
May.
29th.
June 29th would be good.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We've done it before.
And that's for the, just to clarify, that's
Public hearing,
Public hearing, they advertise
For the
the
budget.
The tax
Oh, the,
rate,
yep, okay, got it.
real property tax rate, which will have to be the message given the equalized rate and,
okay. We don't need to vote.
We don't need a motion, do we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. No objection. Right, okay.
What about the budget? Do we have to decide on that too, or no, just this one, because
we
it's
will have to
30
hold a
days?
public hearing on the budget as soon as we decide on the budget, and we can advertise it.
How
But the
long
budget doesn't have only 7 days
Oh,
lead
okay.
on that, so we don't have that 30-day requirement on the budget.
I'll do a public hearing the night of our meeting then, in June, our regular meeting.
But you can't adopt
Or
it
May.
the same night.
You can't adopt
You
it the
can't?
same night.
No, you have to be another 7, right, Mark?
Yes.
Why can't we do it the same night as this public hearing? Can you or no?
It has to be at a different meeting.
Gotcha.
Could be the same night, but you'd have to adjourn and reconvene.
Oh, my goodness, that's silly. No.
It doesn't look good.
Yes.
So what about May's meeting?
The May regular council meeting?
Yes, uh-huh.
7th. I'm sorry, 7, yeah.
Yeah.
May 7th is your regular council meeting, so long as we have the finalized draft.
I think we almost finalized it our last session. We were making
This would be the only change.
Yeah,
If you could put money in it tonight for this.
right.
So, April,
There's time, that's more than 7 days.
yeah,
May 7th.
well, it would publish on the 25th, and, yeah, I would do it.
Okay. May 7th, public hearing
For the budget.
For the budget.
for the budget.
But if the tax rate changes after the public hearing on the 29th, the budget changes,
Correct.
So we would have to re-advertise after that?
No.
No?
because it's not going to change enough.
So you have to have a public hearing on the draft budget. And then and the draft budget assumes a certain tax rate. And then if the tax rate, after you have the public hearing on the equalized tax rate, you decide you don't want to support that, then you're going to have to adjust the budget. And then, so you obviously can't go higher than the tax rate that you advertised, but you can go lower and adjust the budget accordingly.
And if it's only going to affect $22,000, that's below 5%, isn't it?
Yeah, well, so once you've adopted a budget, you can't amend it more than 1% without it going through a public hearing. But this is prior to your adoption, so that rule doesn't apply here.
Still draft.
Yeah.
Okay. So when would we adopt the budget?
You could adopt
Makes
the
sense.
budget as early as the 14th
Of May?
of May.
Do we really need to have a special meeting to do that? I mean, I
Or you
don't
could
know, I'm
adopt
just
it-
asking a
you could- Or you
question.
could adopt it in your regular June 4th meeting.
That's
That would
what I
make more
say,
sense.
Yeah, let's do that. Just going to make June 4th a long meeting.
Okay. Public hearing on the 7th, June 4th, regular meeting for adoption.
Did we, I thought we already decided we weren't going to equalize the tax rate. We did come to a consensus on that?
We had a majority consensus, but of course, it's still in draft mode right now.
Okay.
So,
So that could change.
yep. After hearing the public hearing, yep,
The consensus was we would not equalize it.
Correct.
correct, would not. So we're advertising for the higher,
That would be
Amount.
a higher rate. If you want to equalize it, then
correct.
It would go down. Gotcha.
Okay,
Okay.
Moving on.
clear? All right. Back to our work session where we decided to pull this off to the side to talk about the blight and what we currently have as drafted as our ordinance, and whether or not there was policies and procedures that are in play currently to enforce our ordinance. And the only thing that we are really kind of lacking is maybe the determination policy on which buildings are looked at first and the funding. The suggestion was adding a line item for next year's budget to fund, if necessary, the work that might need to be done on these properties if we could not get compliance from the owners, and we would have to go to the route where we would do like a self-help, I guess would be the terminology, to go in and take the corrective action and build back. So, maybe I should hear from maybe Jerry and then maybe Martin, just where are we as far as our current policy. Don't need any changes or anything like that. If we have it was adopted last year, I believe, in January, if I'm not mistaken.
it was adopted, no, it was
April
adopted in
16th.
2016,
sorry.
2016, I think. Yeah. The current ordinance that you have, in my opinion, is a workable ordinance. It's just a question of the cost associated if it has to go to condemnation or to enforce it, and the cost for officials to inspect the property. So I included at your diocese when the letter that I wrote when I was here back in 2016 as the interim manager to the property across the street, which kind of outlined how the process would work, and the building officials report is in here as well. But if this is the, the ordinance as it stands is, I don't see any problems with it other than cost.
Okay, discussion. I think we'll start from
Yeah,
John.
Yeah, the whole point of this meeting was to, we have an ordinance. it gives us some authorities. I just wanted to call the meeting to kind of put a rough plan in place to then determine if we need a line item in the budget and how much money to put into that line item. And at that point, I think we would have a way forward. We've got several properties in town that are kind of languishing. We haven't decided which ones are most important to go after, which ones are probably more dangerous that we need to do something with. And I think tonight we can make some determination on some of these properties right away, and then just determine if we want to issue some orders for demolition or whatever. But again, it would be nice to, with these properties in mind, what are we going to do? Are we going to defer, or are we going to do something with it?
Martin, do you have anything?
The process that we have to go through.
Right, so I've actually done this process a couple of times with other clients, and the major headache, as you point out, is having the money to do it with. So, if you want to have demolition that's not quite so expensive, if you want to have a mothballing of a historic structure so that it's preserved and for future renovation, that's a little bit trickier because you have to have qualified contractors, and so there's some expense involved in that. You would have to go out and get some bids on that work. So, but a demolition you can do fairly quickly and relatively cheaply. I mean, the city of Manassas had a building that was damaged during one of our windstorms, and it needed to come down immediately, and they got an emergency bid for under $50,000 to demolish a 3-story brick building. So it was pretty good. But that money was put into that work by the city of Manassas, and they now have a lien on the property. Well, they had a lien on the property, and then the property sold, and when the property sold, the lien got paid off. If the property doesn't get sold, then the lien sits there and it collects interest on you, for you, and it collects interest as tax is due, because it's a lien as taxes, so it's at whatever rate you're charging for taxes, which is 8 or 10%, I think. So, it's a nice investment,
Yeah, good
but
return.
it's tying your money up, and that's the real problem. Then you don't have that available for other things. After 2 full years of having the lien on the property, you can sell the property for non-payment. But of course, there's a process that has to go through, and that can take a year because it goes to circuit court. You have to, just as with a tax lien, you have to bring all the parties before the court. You have to show what the value of that property is. You have to show that it has no rental value. You have to show who are all the owners of it. So you have to get a title report. You have to get an appraisal. Then you have to have a hearing on that and present all that evidence to a commissioner in Chancery. The commissioner in Chancery then writes a report, submits that to the circuit court, at which point the circuit court can authorize an auction of the property or sale through a real estate agent, but they usually authorize an auction of the property, and then it gets auctioned off on the courthouse steps. So all of that takes time, and that's, your money, public money tied up all that time.
Okay. And just on a reverse side of that, we had, I think the chief mentioned down in one of the localities in South, they were able to demo 3 homes for under $10,000. Of course, these are
Smaller homes?
smaller homes
Okay.
and probably in a more residential setting.
Mhm.
And looking at our major issues, it just seems like the property owners, we don't really follow those templates of, I think once we start this process, my hope is that these large property owners will take heed and take care of it. Thoughts?
I would just like to bring up the fact that all demolitions in town are supposed to go through the ARB. Is this different, Martin?
No, it is
Okay.
not different. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up, because, of course, under the historic preservation law, under the historic overlay district, every building in the town has to be either receive a certificate of appropriateness for demolition, or it has to be condemned by the building official. Or the third way is if the owner wants to market it for a year and nobody wants to buy it for preservation purposes, then the owner has a right to demolish it. So there are 3 ways to demolish a structure. So with that said, the third one's not available to the town because that's only the owner. But the first one would be a certificate of appropriateness for demolition. So the town council could be the applicant to the ARB and ask for a certificate of appropriateness. And the second one would be to get the building official to condemn the property and say it needs to be taken down now.
So let's go through that, maybe so then the town would be the applicant for it.
Yes.
So we could list these particular ones, go through that process, get the certificate, and then after that process, then give notice to the owner?
Correct. Yeah, and you could run that parallel to the process that's described here in the ordinance in your packet at subsection B of section 22-5, where you adopt a resolution that requires the property owner to submit a plan to demolish or renovate the building, and then, I'm sorry, that's derelict building. It's A, where the owners have to provide you a plan for the demolition of the building. In any event.
Okay.
So you just want to knock everything down?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that we've
This
got,
has taken a terrible turn.
we've got structures that I think the ARB has already given the blessing, maybe not through the formal approval process of an application,
I'm excited.
right? But there are some that's already, they feel that these,
Me personally, I feel like as far as imminently, that we should only address the houses that are turning into demolition by neglect. We just had one down on Jefferson that happened to. And I think, for me, that was the driving factor behind coming on board, that we're going to lose. We only have about 5 structures left in town that people aren't taking care of, that if we don't get on board with this blight ordinance, we're going to lose them all. So, me personally, I would prioritize those properties. I don't, maybe the most neglected, and then move down. I'm just afraid that they're all going to fall in, and then once they're gone, they're gone. And I'm not saying renovate it, make it beautiful, let someone live in it. I'm just saying get it to the point where it's not going to fall down, and it's not a safety issue.
So, Mayor, that's the kind of the mothballing that I was talking about,
Right.
where you secure the building envelope, you make sure the roof doesn't have any leaks, you should make sure the walls aren't letting any water in, and at that point you have the building sit there for a period of time until somebody comes along and buys it for renovation purposes. The issue from a zoning enforcement perspective is you can issue a notice of violation to somebody for demolition by neglect, but then what happens if they don't comply?
Correct.
You take them to court and try to get an injunction or court order to repair the building, and if the person comes in and says, Judge, I don't have enough money to repair this building, and they're not willing to sell it, then the court is not going to hold them in contempt. The court's not going to really punish them in any way to get them to comply. So the issue there is often trying to prioritize based on where you think you're actually going to be able to get somebody who has the money to repair the building.
So I think that, we have about 5 structures, but I think we could immediately knock out 1 or 2 due to the fact that they are not significant, that they hold no historic value, they hold no architectural historic value, and we could probably say we can make a hard decision on those if we want to. The ones that you're concerned about the most are probably 3, and I think we should prioritize those.
I had one question.
Sure.
Martin, I guess, if we're going to do this, if we're going to evaluate and come up with a priority list, so to speak, doesn't there have to be some sort of standard that we're applying to? In other words, why are you choosing my property versus X property?
Right. You do have to have some kind of rational basis for that.
I got
It doesn't have to be set a set of 12 criteria that are weighted objectively. It just has to be some basis.
so it could be, does it have a roof, currently?
Well, is it, one, is it historic worth saving from a historic value? And then I think the second criteria would be, is it viable to be saved? I mean, is there any soundness to it? And then, third, cost. I mean, we can apply a very logical decision step on this. So for instance,
As
the
long as
house-
we treat them all the same,
Yes.
then.
So the house with no roof on the Payne Lane, that's not historically significant. It's got no roof.
I would agree with that.
I mean, you can walk through this process very, very quickly, and I think come up with our prioritized list.
However, I would just put an asterisk on that, which is that if you think a property doesn't have historic value, you just may not know what the historic value is. There was a property on Liberty Street in Manassas that was being demolished by neglect. And the city was about ready to issue a certificate of appropriateness for demolition. The local historic community and the black community got together and found out that it had been built and lived in by a black Civil War veteran. So right there you had a unique historic asset that we didn't realize.
Right, but there is a time period there where people can do that sort of research.
Correct.
If they want.
Right.
I would be shocked and amazed if the house with no roof
You never know.
had a history. But again, okay, so that's fine, but there's built-in time periods for that
Right.
to happen.
You would want to do that screening and be pretty thorough about it so that you made sure that you were being consistent in your application of the historic overlay district so that private property owners will know that you're applying this rule to everybody.
So if you have a particular dwelling in mind, is that a public hearing for that or not? Or it's just a letter to the owners?
You would not need to do a public hearing. You certainly could do one, but there's no requirement that you do one. What you would want to have is, yes, start the process with the notice to the property owners.
To the owner, okay.
And also have your own research done so that you know what its historic significance is, if any. What was the use of the building? And what timeframes are we talking about? And then look at, all the other factors, which are, is this salvageable, and what would it cost to demolish it? And, what's the likely result of your demolition?
I think it would be valuable for this council to give that initialized list to next council. I don't think we're going to be able to necessarily do much between now and July.
Well, I think we could start doing research and.
Certainly, but it would be nice for the next council to say, hey, here's some steps that we could take immediately. And then we put the budget line item in.
But then the budget's already written.
Yeah.
So then you're a whole year without.
Right.
No, that's what I'm saying. Doing the research now, we can put at least an educated guess as to how much money they would need.
Okay.
We might not have to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's on fire? No.
That's the third fire truck, yeah.
Ooh.
Okay. Hear from others? Councilman Leak, Councilman Shannon, any thoughts?
As we stated within the budget work session, I'm on board for this. I just want to make sure that we have a clear plan in mind before we go ahead and allocate those funds into a line item. So if we had a game plan and clear direction on what we exactly were looking to do, and we had a rough estimate on what it would actually cost, then I would be more than happy to vote in favor of this. But I don't want to start moving forward and doing these different things, and then as legal was saying, circuit court and more lawyers' fees, and I think our lawyers' fees could easily add up to $50,000 just going through this process, depending on how drawn out it is, especially if it can take anywhere from months up to a year. So that would be my only worry in that, is that we put $50,000 in there, but then $50,000 is not even enough to touch what we were wanting to accomplish, and that would be my worry. I think that I can think of 5 structures within town that could use some TLC, and it could definitely clean up. But at the same time, being within, thinking with my commercial hat on, we have to be realistic in regards to if we're wanting some properties to be developed and to bring in new businesses, because there are certain degrees to that to where we have to make sure that our parking our parking regulations are not so strict where we can't develop a parcel because of the homes and where they are currently located within a parcel. So we have to be open-minded in regards to maybe relocating those homes within town if they can be moved. Or even to the point where, with the Lewis home, to where we put it up for someone to be able to take it out of town, but it continued to be used in its form of a historic structure. Now, obviously, historic preservation is key to me, and one of the major things that I ran on when we ran last term. So I don't want to just demo buildings just to demo it, but I want to make sure that we're open-minded and when we're thinking of folks in regards to their ROI, because at some point they're going to be looking at the dollar and saying, hey, listen, I'd love to renovate this, but financially it just doesn't make sense. You have to give and take somewhere, because if you want me to renovate this, your parking regulations are too strict. And we'll use the firehouse, for example. If we want that structure to stay as is and to renovate it, they'll never be able to put anything in there because our parking regulations do not allow per square footage what he would need or what she would need, whoever the owner would be. And so I think that that's something that I want to task the Planning Commission with, is to relook at our parking regulations. If we truly want to be a walking town, then at that point we need to lighten up the grip in regards to our parking regulations to allow these folks to be able to come in and develop their properties and be able to save some of these historic structures. But I don't think it just comes down to the historicness. We need to be thinking outside the box here and what their ROI is on their property, as well as the parking regulations that are being tied down with this.
Okay. Further thoughts?
I agree with everything that Connor just stated. The historic value is major in our little walking town. It is major. But I can tell you $50,000 will not go far if you're going to pay structural engineers to come in and other specialists. That can eat up half the money right away just on 5 buildings. I don't know what we paid or what was paid before for the one home over here. I know we had structural engineer, I guess, come in on that, or
On Jefferson, that was the property owners.
that was a property owner.
They
So,
want to
okay.
demolish, they have to pay for the structural engineer to say it's not.
So, I mean, I am very supportive, and that's one of the things I'll be running on as well, is keeping the historic nature of this town. I think it's very important for us. But if we're going to enforce the policy, then we need to have the money to do it. I don't think you can just go halfway. We need to either enforce it or not enforce it. And prioritizing, I agree, John, exactly what he said. We're going to have to set standards, and I think historic nature being number one. I mean, and you weigh that, maybe that's worth 5 points, and then something else is worth 4 points, and you go down, and you basically rate. If you got 5 buildings, which one has the most points? That's the one. That's our number one priority.
Right.
So.
Rated by a point scale. Yeah, so when I originally thought this 50,000 was a place setter, I just looked at some of the buildings that, number one, need immediate attention. Is the Colonel's house needs a roof. If we're going to save it, which I think probably everyone on this dais feels that that's a historic home worth saving, it needs a tight roof, and right now it has no roof. That because of the metal that blew off because of the windstorm. So looking at that, $10,000 to secure a tight roof, and some of these other ones, that probably need to come down because it has no roof. If it doesn't have a historic value according to the ARB, then there's, in other words, by doing this, we need to have some money set aside. Do we know the exact number? No. But we spend within the budget of that number and to see how much we could do. Now, that's not even saying that this property owner is not going to fix once the process goes, which I'd be very surprised that he would allow a lien to go on his property just for us securing this roof, maybe taking down one of these outbuildings. So that was my thought, to put it in there. we don't have a plan to at least set some money aside, but no,
I think we have to put some, and whether, I mean, I've been focused on the 50,000 because you can do a lot with that. Now, that can get eaten up pretty quick too, but we've got to do something.
Right.
I mean, you've got to start somewhere.
Well, and that's why I would, again, we've got about 5 buildings. We can either rank order all 5, or we can choose the one that we want to start off with. If it's the Colonel's house, then I think rather than just putting a stopgap roof on it, I would want to probably put the roof on it, take the porch down, board it up to where it's secure, and attractively board it up as much as you can do that, and get the fence down and get that tree down.
right.
Then it's stabilized and it looks decent for a while. Now, that's probably going to eat up that entire budget line, just to do that. But at least you've done it on one property and you see,
You got to start.
Yep.
yeah, and then you can let the next councils pick the next one.
I personally feel that once you start doing this, that the property owners are gonna say, oh, they're serious, and they're gonna hopefully take heed when the letters go out. I agree with the mayor. I'm hoping that when we send this letter to the property owner, I mean, I think that's the initial phase for the whole thing is, visually from the exterior, we can see that you have no roof, you have this, the porch is falling off, the fence isn't secure around it, so you need to fix the roof so it doesn't, fall in on itself and, go through it. And, that would be the first step, is just to notify them all, say this is, but as far as spending money on it, yeah, I would start with that house. I mean,
And I think the ARB would be one of the first committees to give us a,
priority, yeah.
priority list.
Sure.
And also, I want to say about the firehouse, since Connor brought it up, the last demolition request that came, the ARB relented and said, at least keep the main structure of the firehouse, and they weren't even willing to do that. So we only wanted the original smaller structure, not all the additions on it and all that other stuff. So I would say for that property, that we've already stated that we would be willing to accept just keeping that main structure, so.
So should we just send out letters to the property owners and say, what's your intention? What, do you have plans for this? What are you gonna do with these? Otherwise, we're going to come back with the next letter saying, do something. But I think we ought to be fair, and at least, because some of these properties have been languishing. You got property owners that, live in the eastern hemisphere, and they haven't thought about this land in 10 years. But if you put them on notice and say, we want to know what you're going to do, and if they say, well, I'm just going to let it sit until somebody offers me something, and it's like, no, that doesn't work. So rather than sending out letters saying, fix your property, I think we owe it to the property owner just to say, hey, they may have something in mind. Let's just give them a chance to tell that.
I will say that we've had a couple property owners come for demolition permits that have been denied.
Right.
So now their step, I mean, I don't know, but could they just be saying, well, we'll just let it fall in and then it's demolished and then we don't have to worry about it?
Well, if I was property owner, that's a sequence of steps. That's a.
Well, you don't buy a
strategic plan.
historic property then.
Well, you don't. Right, but I'm just saying, right now, they own property whether they wanted it or not.
Well,
It's
most of these
historic.
have been bought.
Yeah.
They
so-
knew when they bought them, they were already more than 50 years old, so.
So we could definitely put public safety as probably one of those highest things.
Absolutely.
So public safety and emergency maintenance are
Let me ask.
securing.
Yeah, let me ask the chief,
Can we get him a mic?
how many times have you had to run people out of these abandoned structures?
Me personally, since I have been working here on day shift with the day shift guys, we haven't run anybody out.
So we don't have I mean, they're.
And I don't remember the last time a night shift guy told me that he's run somebody out of there, especially since the fence is up.
Yeah, many years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go get the mic in, Molly.
So recently, we received a complaint that at the Colonel's house, the St. Michael's Academy uses the field there as a play field for the children. And once a ball or a toy goes over the fence, the teachers are known to climb the fence, get in, get the toy out, and then
Seriously.
they just continue to use it. Also, with the warmer weather, the last couple weeks, including today, we've seen teenagers over there taking pictures, posing with the buildings, and going up close to them. So we don't think they're going in them, but they certainly are going close to the buildings that are not
Which is a
currently in
safety
use.
issue.
Yeah.
We-
That's what the sergeant just said. We've
Okay.
had 5 instances in the past year of people just walking up, taking photos, hanging around the building, but don't know it.
That's right.
Okay.
So I think the biggest concern was the fact that some people
wind.
were climbing over the fence to get toys and stuff out
And-
for the children.
And I would think a concern would be, I don't know, would the town be liable? If anybody was to go, who put the fence up? Was that,
Property owner.
that was a property owner?
Yeah.
So we're not liable if someone goes in and gets hurt?
No, you're not economically liable, but your reputation will take a hit.
What about this June 24th letter to this Mr. Smith? Was that not what we, letter that was sent to him,
That was 2016,
right?
yeah.
But was there any follow-up to this? Okay.
There's another letter dated August 25th, 2016.
Oh, I'm
Shows that
sorry,
one as
it's
well.
right here.
So that's the letter that Jerry sent.
Okay.
So he did repair the roof last time that we came
Okay.
with something. He did a repaired the front of it. But since the last wind damage, I don't think we've sent him anything, nor has he responded, obviously, on his own.
That's a good sign if he's taken steps when we've asked him to.
Yep.
I looked up the Fisher Island Drive address on Google Maps. That's a very nice little private island off the coast of Miami Beach. So he's not hurting in life, and this is not his priority.
Hit him with a letter.
Yeah, he no longer resides there, I don't.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he sold it.
Very
Okay.
nice chunk of change.
Public record,
Sure.
yeah.
So again, I'm trying to just get some next steps here. And I would propose that we just send an inquiry letter to all the property owners and just say, hey, remember you've got some property here, and what are you going to do with it? Give them 3 weeks to respond.
Well, and these, maybe in the letter, they could put visually, these things we can see.
Yeah, we could say, we have concerns, this is not an official notice that you have blight, but we have noticed these things. Give them a chance to come back and say, we are going to fix it, and when. If they don't come back within 3 weeks, then I would say, send out the formal letter and saying, we have seen this, and your next letter will be a directive.
Is that a motion?
Put it in form of a motion.
Everything I just said, I move.
There you go. So
Second.
moved.
Go ahead, Steve can do it.
Seconded by Councilman Shannon. So discussion on the motion is we're going to send this friendly letter with pictures and photos that.
Well, I didn't say
identi-
pictures and photos, but
I think,
Sure, I think we should.
yeah, we can.
agree with that and agree
Yes,
with the
sir.
second.
I agree.
Um,
Second.
Along with the, maybe our blight ordinance, would that be
We could send that too?
right? And it's saying that if we don't hear back from you, this will be our next
Right,
thing?
yep.
So,
Agree. I
okay.
think we have to be upfront with them and let them know. We're giving you this opportunity. Hopefully you'll take it. If not, this is what our next step is. I think
And the only thing
That's the way
is
to go.
maybe the response time. I think you mentioned 2-3 weeks.
Well, we have to, we're going to send these certified, right? So that we know they get them. And then I think once they get them, they can certainly send and an email works too, if they want to.
Some kind of response.
A response back to just say,
agree.
I am aware, I do have a plan, here's, some rough outlines of a plan. Or if they come back and say, I have no plan.
Right.
Or they may just say, I want to talk to you about this, or they may just tell us to, do something.
Would it
to
be
ourselves.
also,
So, I mean, again, we just need to see what the response is.
Okay, but we have to give them a time to respond.
Yeah, and I say 3 weeks is certainly adequate.
okay? Looks like-
Jerry, do we have an updated address? No.
Did
We
you-
have a phone number that we can contact him and request an address.
Okay.
Well, this is more than just one guy.
Should
Yeah,
we,
just for our understanding, could you identify the 5 properties you'd like us to
Isn't
send
it
this
the
letter?
properties that are in this building officials?
Okay.
I mean, is that the 5 properties?
Is
Right?
that the other house?
Start.
And also the Colonel's house that you're referring to?
so would it be prudent also, Martin, to include the language, something about that some of these are immediate safety issues, to basically put him on notice, so that way there's probably some type of,
Well, if there is an immediate safety issue, then I don't know that we want to give somebody 3 weeks' notice
No.
that we're not going to start the process yet. I mean, if there's an immediate safety hazard, and I haven't looked at Mr. Barbeau's report since it came out 2 years ago, but if there's an immediate safety hazard there, then we should have the county, well, that's another issue,
Yeah,
because the county doesn't want to do building property maintenance code enforcement for us. They will, as I understand it, but they're going to require a resolution by council before they will do that. But if there's an immediate safety hazard that we can remedy, we still have the right to do that, but again, it's going to cost you money.
I don't think we have any safety issues.
okay, all right.
I mean, the people are jumping over the fence. It's
People
not
are
like
climbing
they
the
can walk
fence,
in.
and they're B&E, they're breaking and entering if they go into these properties, they're trespassing.
Okay.
So, if the building's gonna fall on somebody walking on the street, but I don't think we have that.
Right. I think there was one issue with one of the porches where we asked them to secure it because the fear was that it was going to come down. And they did, they braced it up, and that was,
They got a
How many?
2x4 up there.
how many years ago?
Right.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Oh, the only other thing that I would possibly add is, if the ARB wanted to give us a prioritized list.
Right.
So the firehouse is not gonna make our list?
Isn't the firehouse on here?
No, but we can add that. We could add that because that's definitely a roof issue that's going on right now. Is that the concern?
Roof and windows.
Roof and windows. Yep. Is there any objection to also adding that as the,
I didn't hear your, concern the ARB, you wanted to add that?
If they can just give us a prioritized list of these properties, which they would like to see, stabilized first.
And we have a meeting on Wednesday night that we can add that to the agenda for them to go ahead and prioritize that list.
That's fine, that'd be great.
great.
Is that the ARB meeting?
Correct.
Is this Wednesday?
Yep.
Yes.
So there's no objection to go ahead and add that other structure?
No
No.
objection.
It's gonna be 2 structures, sir.
Okay.
Because,
But there's 2 properties.
property contains a bungalow as well. So the first structure, I'm just going off Google Maps here, is 14941 Washington Street. And the second structure would be,
I believe it's 6707 Jefferson Street.
yes, ma'am.
Great, okay. All right, any further discussion on the motion?
Right.
Sure.
So then the next thing would be, once we get the responses, hopefully within 3 weeks, I think we can make a decision at that point whether or not we want to add a line item.
Okay,
The budget.
fair enough.
Okay, fair enough.
One more, just off the top of my head, would the blue house between Madison,
That is on there, isn't it?
I think these 5 properties are the only property, or the properties across the street.
Well, at Colonel's house.
And the Colonel's house, which is part of that entire parcel there. And so the properties that I would like to see added to would be
Oh, yes.
the firehouse, the bungalow, which resides on the same parcel, and then the blue house on Washington Street, which is,
Now, the blue house
The
on
Pardo
Washington.
property. Is
Yeah,
that what
the-
you're
Is
speaking
it the
of?
Pardo property?
yes.
Yeah.
So 14881?
You're going to have a little trouble reaching her.
Yes.
The last thing we knew about Pardo was Jerry Kennedy was going to put that house on the back of a truck and just move it.
Well, there is an update.
So,
Jerry had the privilege of speaking to her, I think, last week or week before last. So landscaping,
Oh, okay.
spoke to her.
The daughter, right?
Yes,
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 yeah, so
That-
I think we,
And the ARB did approve the demolition of the back portion of that structure.
Correct.
all right, so no objection, that'll be one other addition. Okay.
Also, just as an update, several, I'm going to say a couple years ago, the ARB made a list of the properties on the block across here that they prioritized to save. It was the Colonel's house, and there was this one on.
three.
Yes,
Yeah, the
there were
two,
3 of them,
each corner.
each corner.
Yep.
So, I mean, they're realistic in the fact that we're not going to be able to save everything.
Right, that's good.
So,
Okay,
but the other ones could be demolished. I mean, he could come forward.
okay.
Just a point, Mayor. If you can't wait 3 weeks to decide if you're going to add a $50,000 line item and meet a
Yeah.
May 7th public hearing on the budget.
Good point.
I'd say go ahead and add it.
Do we have consensus to add it?
Yes.
To add the line item?
To add the line
Where's the
item?
money coming from?
It's for,
It has to come from
unrestricted,
reserves.
unrestricted reserve.
I say add it.
But it's not out of the 30%, it's out of the,
Correct.
it's not coming out of the 30% of it, it's coming out of the other, do we reference that as unrestricted reserves? Roberto?
Well, why don't we keep it simple? We're going to bring that up as the next motion.
Okay.
Since we're on discussion of this motion,
Yes, we should.
we've added, following along, we added 5 plus 3, so we're up to 8.
Well, if we give them 2 weeks, does that give us enough time? No? Okay, that's all right.
All right, so,
Just one quick question.
Sure.
Do we have to send this property owner across, do we have to send them individual letters for each parcel, or as
Just one.
just one letter?
And list it.
And make a list?
because I think they all have
Okay.
real property addresses, I think. Yeah.
But then, we also, if I'm not mistaken, we have to publish that in the newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks.
Also true.
That,
And then we cannot
That
act,
is but that's for the actual enforcement process.
Enforcement.
This is the friendly letter prior to the enforcement process.
okay.
Yep,
All right,
all right, clear on that?
okay. So,
No other properties, we're up to 8. All right, roll call vote, please.
Cole,
Yes,
Edwards.
yes.
Lee,
yes.
Shannon.
Yes.
the shorter the letters, the better.
Right,
Keep them.
okay. Our next motion is about a possible allocation or adding a line item to our proposed budget. We'll call it the blight line item.
It's more like 11 properties.
Okay.
If you count all the Payne Lane buildings,
Oh, that little outbuilding, a shed?
yeah,
Yeah.
and the counting and the paving,
Okay,
so you're about at 11.
Okay.
so we'll make that record known that it's actually 11.
Mayor, I move to add to our draft budget $50,000 coming out of our unrestricted reserves for the purpose allocated towards our blight ordinance.
Okay, motion on the floor. Need a second for discussion?
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion.
Question, so the unallocated reserve, what were we going to use that for originally?
It's just in there,
Understood.
nothing.
We transferred, we used some of it for this building renovation.
Yeah.
Roberta, how much do we have in that unrestricted? Isn't it like 400? 470?
Yeah, but we were going to transfer 200K for this, for rewrapping this building, so we're just taking more out.
But that's,
More out that we have been saving over the years to
do
do
these
something
projects.
with.
I'm just,
It's not touching our 30%, and it's not touching our operating. This is just extra money on top of our 30% that we have sitting there that's doing nothing, but we have the opportunity to actually make a difference.
okay.
You got to spend money, unfortunately, to make things happen, in my opinion.
Go to our true
What-
capitalist.
Yeah. And just for note, it is getting some percent interest, which is very small
Okay.
by being
All
in the
right,
bank.
I just want to make sure we're not robbing Peter to pay Connor.
So I think we had a motion that we got seconded for discussion. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Cole. Edwards.
Yes.
Leek.
Yes.
Shannon.
Yes.
If we could note that and put that into our sort of final draft,
Oh, yeah.
rough. Okay. Other thoughts? Sorry, it was longer. It was before your time.
We don't need any other meetings, right?
Anything else staff needs from us? Any
We don't need to set any
clarification?
other meeting dates or anything? We're good?
Don't believe so.
Motion
Okay.
to adjourn.
There you go.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you all.
When's the next meeting?
5:55.
27th, so we don't have any budget work sessions, we don't